The Creator's Code, Episode 3, Leviathan's Shadow, Part 2, The City Beneath the Waves. The low, resonant hum emanating from the abyss intensified, vibrating through the very hull of their submersibles, a sound that bypassed their ears and settled deep in their bones. It was a primordial thrum, a slow, awakening groan from the core of the ocean itself. On the Abyss Explorer's main screens, the colossal, impossible outlines resolved into something undeniably artificial. It was a vast, sprawling city unlike any human construction, sprawled across the abyssal plain. "My God," Aiden whispered, his breath fogging his helmet. "It's not just a structure. It's a city. Miles wide." The sonar image was now clear enough to show intricate, impossibly geometric patterns that stretched into the crushing darkness, dwarfing their submersibles. Kira Tanaka was riveted to her console, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific awe and creeping dread. "And it's organic," she added, her voice barely audible over the hum. "Just like the lunar archive. My bioscanners are detecting dormant biological signatures, but on an exponential scale. It's a living city." Priya Desai at the helm of Abyss Explorer 1, her face illuminated by the eerie blue glow of her controls, was silent for a long moment. Her initial skepticism had evaporated, replaced by the profound, almost spiritual reverence of a scientist confronting the impossible. "The Leviathan's call wasn't just a hum," she finally murmured. "It was the city, breathing, dreaming, for millennia." The submersibles, now guided by Priya's expert hands, moved slowly, cautiously, along the perimeter of the titanic structure. It was unlike any city on Earth. There were no sharp angles of concrete or steel. Instead, its surface undulated with smooth, seamless curves, like the petrified skin of some unimaginable Leviathan. Veins of soft, bioluminescent light pulsed beneath its surface, casting an ethereal glow that struggled against the absolute darkness of the abyss. It wasn't metallic, not in the human sense, but made of some impossibly durable, bioengineered material that seemed to grow out of the very seabed, seamlessly blending with the geological features around it. It felt ancient, silent, and deeply unsettling, like being inside the stomach of a colossal, sleeping beast. "There." Kira pointed to a section of the city's vast organic wall, where a faint, shimmering field of energy seemed to ripple. "An entrance. My scanners are showing a fluctuating energy signature. It's not a door, it's a membrane." As Abyss Explorer I drew closer, a section of the city's organic surface began to deform, slowly parting like liquid. It wasn't a conventional hatch, but a living maw, revealing a dark, cavernous opening. The water that flowed from within was slightly warmer, carrying a faint metallic tang, mixed with a strange, almost sweet, earthy odor. The smell of vast, ancient machinery, or perhaps of a profoundly alien life form. "This is it." Aiden's voice was tight with anticipation and trepidation. "Inside we go. Maintain absolute silence, Marcus. We don't want to wake anything else up." The submersibles slipped through the parting membrane, entering the alien city. The transition was jarring. The crushing pressure of the abyss outside instantly vanished, replaced by an internal environment that defied all logic. The interior was vast, echoing, and filled with a cool, breathable atmosphere that smelled faintly of ozone and damp earth. Glowing veins of soft, bioluminescent light snaked across the organic walls and ceiling, illuminating intricate alien patterns. Strange, crystalline flora, structures that seemed to grow from the very substance of the walls, sprouted from every surface, casting an ethereal, otherworldly glow. It was a living, breathing cathedral, ancient and silent. They navigated through immense winding passages, their submersibles dwarfed by the sheer scale of the corridors. The floor was soft, yielding, like walking on a living membrane, muffling the low hum of their thrusters. Aiden's scanner, a portable handheld device, hummed louder and louder, indicating massive energy signatures ahead. Kira's bioscanners detected incredibly complex, non-human biological activity, dormant for millennia, but now subtly stirring, a response to their intrusion, or perhaps to the escalating chaos on the surface. They found it in a central, colossal chamber, a vast domed space at the very heart of the organic Leviathan. Suspended in the center of the chamber, seemingly floating in a field of shimmering, almost invisible energy, was a titanic, crystalline structure. It pulsed with a brilliant, inner light, casting complex, shifting patterns on the organic walls. This was the city's core, its data repository, and perhaps its very brain. This place was clearly designed for life, for creation. Around the central crystal, enormous organic vats, translucent and pulsating with internal light, lined the chamber. Inside them, shadowy forms, immense and indistinct, floated in a nutrient-rich fluid. These were not natural creatures. These were bioengineered organisms, prototypes, or perhaps even colossal war beasts, held in suspended animation, their forms hinting at grotesque power. Kira, drawn by an irresistible scientific compulsion, approached the core, her expression one of profound awe and palpable dread. Her activated DNA markers, resonant with the God signal, seemed to react to its presence. As she extended a gloved hand towards it, a faint, high-pitched hum emanated from the crystal, and then, impossibly, the very air around them began to shimmer. Suddenly, the vast chamber was no longer dim and organically lit. It was filled with holographic projections, so vivid, so real, they felt solid. They were not simple images. They were immersive, overwhelming, designed to be experienced. They showed records of the creator's advanced bioengineering work, far more detailed and disturbing than anything on the moon. They focused on genetic manipulation, not just of human ancestors, but of entire terrestrial ecosystems. The first images were breathtaking. Primordial Earth, but then, the creators, more clearly seen now, engaged in immense, planetary-scale genetic engineering. They were not just guiding evolution, they were designing it. They built vast, intricate life forms, tailored for specific purposes. Holographic sequences displayed Earth's early oceans, teeming with bioengineered leviathans, colossal aquatic beings designed for purposes unknown. Their DNA strands highlighted, altered, accelerated. Then came the chilling revelation. The purpose of this deep-sea city. It wasn't just an archive, it was a living bioengineering facility. Holograms showed the creators experimenting with hybrid life forms, part organic, part machine, designed for extreme environments, for war, for purposes humanity couldn't fathom. They witnessed the creation of creatures of immense power and terrible purpose, some beautiful, some monstrous, all designed for a grand, terrible plan. "This is a factory," Aiden whispered, his voice hoarse, his gaze fixed on a holographic projection of a titanic whale-like creature, its body riddled with biomechanical implants, navigating a crushing deep-sea environment. They weren't just observing. They were building, modifying, deploying. Priya Desai was utterly spellbound, her own theories about unexplained deep-sea phenomena now given a horrifying, undeniable context. Her eyes darted from one projection to another, witnessing life forms she had only dreamed of, or perhaps subconsciously feared. The deep-sea hums, the impossible sonar signatures. They weren't natural. They were this. Their creations, moving, living. As they delved deeper into the city's data, the air in the chamber grew colder, the hum of the crystal core subtly changing, growing harsher, more discordant. The holographic projections began to glitch, flickering with static, interspersed with jarring, disturbing images, not of successful creations but of failures. Grotesque, disfigured biological forms, writhing and pulsating, trapped within what looked like ancient, organic containment fields. These were not the elegant designs of the creators. These were abominations, mutated, tortured life forms, left to decay or be recycled. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed through the vast organic chamber, seemingly from the very walls themselves. It was a sound of ancient pain and primal hunger, a sound that seemed to scrape against the very fabric of their sanity. Marcus Wright's voice roared through their comms, laced with sharp urgency. "Chase, Tanaka, Desai, what was that? My external sensors just went wild. Movement. We have contact. Not us, not our sub." The holographic projections died, plunging the chamber back into the dim, pulsing bioluminescence. From the massive organic vats lining the chamber, where the colossal forms floated in suspended animation, a thick, viscous fluid began to drain rapidly. The membranes enclosing them started to shudder and tear apart with wet, squelching sounds. It wasn't one of the colossal specimens awakening, not yet, but a smaller, grotesque, mutated creature emerged from a suddenly ruptured vat. It was roughly the size of a large shark, but impossibly deformed, a nightmarish blend of aquatic and terrestrial features. Its skin was translucent, pale, stretched taut over an unnaturally elongated, multi-limbed body. Multiple fins and tendrils, too many and too thin, twitched spasmodically, ending in razor-sharp claws. Its head was a mockery of a fish's skull, with too many eyes, glistening and black, and a maw filled with needle-like teeth. It moved with a twitching, jerky motion, propelled by powerful, unnatural fins like a broken puppet. It was a product of early, unstable genetic manipulation, a failed aquatic experiment of the creators, perhaps a bioweapon or guardian that had been sealed away for millennia, left to fester in the dormant facility. It was disfigured, in pain, and utterly, profoundly hostile. Its growl was a desperate, pained sound, filled with ancient fury and a primal instinct to attack. "Contact! We have contact!" Marcus's voice was a harsh command, his team already reacting, their laser rifles snapping up. "Everyone, weapons hot! Stay low!" The creature launched itself forward with terrifying speed, a blur of pale limbs and sharp claws, its multiple fins propelling it through the dense internal atmosphere with impossible agility. It moved like a predator, but with an unnatural, broken grace, scrambling across the organic walls. Marcus's team, hardened by years of covert operations, opened fire instantly, their laser bolts searing the air, hitting the creature's translucent skin. But it seemed unnaturally resilient. It twisted and contorted, deflecting some of the blasts, its movements impossible to track. This wasn't just a beast. It was a horror born of science gone mad. The creature shrieked, a sound that pierced their comms, as Marcus's team landed more hits. It was a high-pitched, agonizing sound, but it kept coming undeterred, driven by primal, twisted instinct. Its many eyes, too many and too black, fixed on Aiden and Kira, drawn to the activated genetic signals within their DNA. Aiden, fueled by a surge of adrenaline and a desperate need to protect Kira, raised his sidearm and fired. The small projectile slammed into the creature's head with a sickening thud, but it merely staggered, its deformed skull proving surprisingly tough. Kira, though trembling, quickly brought up her own weapon, firing at the creature's limbs, trying to slow its impossible movements. The fight was brutal, claustrophobic. The creature was fast, ferocious, and relentless, a nightmare given flesh. It seemed to embody the very essence of suffering and rage, a testament to the creator's hubris, a silent scream from a forgotten experiment. Marcus, drawing on his combat experience, moved with brutal efficiency, flanking the creature, trying to find a weak point. He fired a sustained burst, aiming for a pulsing, translucent sac near its exposed chest cavity, what appeared to be its heart. The laser bolt pierced the sac. The creature shrieked one last agonizing sound, its limbs flailing wildly, thrashing against the organic walls. It collapsed, its pale body twitching, then slowly dissolving into a pile of iridescent organic dust, leaving behind a lingering, metallic stench. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with the smell of ozone and death, and the chilling realization that this was just one failed experiment, waiting in the deep. What else was dormant here? The putrid, metallic stench of the dissolved creature still hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the horrors this ancient facility contained. Aiden Chase, his heart pounding, looked at Kira Tanaka and Priya Desai, their faces pale, their eyes wide with a mixture of shock and morbid fascination. The creature was just one, a failed experiment, but its existence spoke volumes about the creator's true nature. They weren't just observing, they were engineering, building, and discarding life on a scale that dwarfed humanity's wildest scientific ambitions. "This facility," Kira whispered, her voice still trembling slightly. "It's not just an archive. It's a bioweapon forge, or a genetic testing ground for something monstrous." She turned back to the colossal crystalline core, its light now pulsating with a more erratic, urgent rhythm. "There's more data here, deeper truths. We need to extract everything we can now." As Marcus Wright and his remaining team secured the area, their weapons still hot, Aiden, Kira, and Priya refocused on the core. The recent violence seemed to have unlocked new data streams, perhaps triggered by the creature's demise or their own activated DNA. Holographic projections flickered to life, revealing more intricate details of the creator's work. They saw complex diagrams of biological warfare, schematics for bioengineered organisms designed not just for specific environments, but for specific destructive capabilities. The data revealed the creator's true nature. They were not benevolent gods or malevolent overlords in the human sense. They were driven by a singular, relentless imperative: survival and evolution. They viewed life as a resource, a canvas, a tool. Entire species were cultivated, modified, and if deemed inefficient or flawed, ruthlessly discarded. Humanity, it became horrifyingly clear, was one such grand experiment, a testbed for a specific genetic sequence, perhaps an attempt to engineer a resilience, a specific adaptability. They weren't cruel, they were simply utterly pragmatic, operating on a scale and with a detachment that defied human morality. Our existence was purely utilitarian. Then came the chilling revelation of why the creators had left Earth. The holographic data streams shifted, depicting not just experiments but a vast galactic war. Images of cosmic devastation flashed across the chamber. Planets shattered, star systems engulfed in unimaginable energies. This wasn't a localized conflict, it was an interstellar cataclysm. The adversaries, the true hunters, were shown in fleeting, terrifying glimpses. Not as physical beings, but as energy signatures, as distortions in space-time, as a pervasive, consuming force that sought to dismantle or absorb all complex life, including the creators themselves. The creators hadn't abandoned Earth out of indifference. They had fled a collapsing galactic empire, escaping a force that was overwhelming them. This deep-sea city, this bioengineering marvel, was not just a research station. It was a hidden fallback, a last-ditch effort, or perhaps even a biological ark, a place to store dormant prototypes, genetic blueprints, and perhaps even a weapon designed to fight the very adversaries now resurfacing. The ancient war had reached Earth, leaving behind scars in humanity's DNA and a hidden sleeping menace. "They were running," Aiden whispered, his voice hoarse with newfound understanding. "They left us because they were being hunted. And now, the hunters are here for us too." As Aiden finished extracting the most critical data, the very air around them began to thrum with a profound, terrifying new frequency. It wasn't the background hum of the city anymore. It was a deep, guttural vibration that resonated through the organic floor, shaking the very submersibles. The immense dormant vats lining the chamber, still containing the colossal, shadowy forms, began to glow with an eerie internal light, brighter and more intense than before. "The Leviathan," Priya breathed, her eyes wide with fear and awe. "It's waking up. The primary energy signature from the core is spiking exponentially. It's responding to something." On the main console, a new massive energy signature, far larger and more powerful than anything they had detected before, appeared on the external long-range sensors. It wasn't originating from within the city, but from far above them, in the ocean, descending. It was too large to be a human vessel. It was the adversaries. Their arrival, or rather, the ramping up of their presence, was causing a cascade effect, awakening the ancient facility. "We need to go now." Marcus roared over the comms, his voice clipped and urgent. "The main entrance is destabilizing. External pressure sensors are spiking. Something's outside and it's not friendly." The organic walls of the city began to pulse violently, their bioluminescence flickering wildly like a dying heart. The subtle metallic tang in the air grew sharper, almost acrid. From deeper within the city, they could hear distant, reverberating thumps, like something impossibly vast slowly shifting, grinding against ancient organic structures. The Leviathan specimen in the central vat, a truly colossal, multi-limbed, semi-organic creature, began to stir visibly, its massive limbs twitching, its form subtly shifting within the fluid. It wasn't fully awake, but it was getting there. "Pull back! Pull back!" Aiden yelled, his voice strained. "We have the data. Get us out of here." The retreat was a desperate, high-stakes dash through the labyrinthine awakening city. The once quiet, serene passages now groaned and pulsed around them. Smaller, previously unseen, bioengineered aquatic creatures, similar to the one they had just fought but adapted for mobility in the internal atmosphere, now darted through the glowing corridors. They were like grotesque, phosphorescent fish, snapping with needle-like teeth, their movements erratic and aggressive. Marcus's team had to suppress them with precision fire, their laser bursts searing arcs of light through the dimness. The Abyss Explorers, built for stealth, now pushed their thrusters to their maximum, racing towards the still-parting maw of the entrance. The journey was punctuated by sudden lurches and jarring impacts as the city's internal systems reacted to their presence and the external pressure from the newly arrived adversaries. The organic passageways began to constrict in places, forcing Marcus to execute daring maneuvers, scraping the submersibles against the pulsating, living walls. "They're closing the gateway," Kira yelled, pointing at the main viewport. The immense organic maw they had entered through was slowly, deliberately, beginning to seal itself, the fluid membranes flowing back into place. "Full power! Ram it!" Marcus yelled, his voice strained with effort. He pushed Abyss Explorer I forward, directly towards the narrowing gap. The sub shuddered violently as its hull scraped against the closing organic lips of the entrance, the sounds of stressed metal and groaning biomaterial filling the cabin. For a terrifying second, Aiden thought they would be crushed, trapped forever in the abyssal tomb. But with a final sickening lurch, the sub broke free, emerging back into the absolute crushing darkness of the Mariana Trench. They ascended rapidly, leaving the awakening city behind, a faint, pulsing glow now visible deep below, like a malevolent eye opening in the abyss. The climb through the deep ocean was a tense, silent ordeal, punctuated only by the crackle of their comms and the relieved sighs of the crew. Upon surfacing, they were met not with calm, but with a new layer of chaos. The Nautilus II was under heavy electronic jamming. Communication was sporadic, filled with static and fragmented, frantic reports from various global channels. The disappearances were no longer isolated incidents. They were escalating into a full-blown epidemic. Major coastal cities reported mass vanishings, entire populations gone in moments, leaving behind only strange energy signatures and an eerie silence. What they had seen on the moon and in the ocean was now playing out across the globe. The adversaries were no longer just observers. They were actively harvesting, their presence expanding rapidly. Earth was no longer just an experiment. It was a battleground, a commodity to be exploited. "They're accelerating the harvest," Aiden stated, his voice grim, staring at the fragmented news feeds. "The awakening of the archives, our interference, it's triggered something. They know we're aware, and they're not slowing down." Kira, hunched over her laptop, was furiously decrypting the last fragments of data from the deep-sea archive. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, sweat beading on her brow. Suddenly, she let out a sharp gasp. "Aiden, Priya, look at this," she exclaimed, her voice a mix of terror and profound revelation. On her screen, a complex holographic projection solidified. It was a partial star chart, but overlaid with it, a series of intricate genetic sequences, almost identical to the active markers in her own DNA. But these weren't just sequences. They were blueprints. Blueprints for a weapon, and with it, a terrifying new set of coordinates. Not for another hidden base, not for a dormant experiment. "It's a countermeasure," Kira whispered, her eyes wide with a horrifying realization. The Creator's final design, a biological weapon designed to fight the adversaries, but it requires a specific catalyst, a living catalyst. And the coordinates, they lead to its activation point, on Earth. The coordinates pointed to a remote, desolate region, far from any major population centers, a place shrouded in ancient myths and isolated geological formations. It was a place where human presence was minimal, but where a dormant power lay waiting. A chilling, automated voice, faint but unmistakable, began to echo through their comms, seemingly overriding all frequencies. It was the same voice they had heard on the moon, the voice from the God signal, now colder, more ominous, filled with a palpable sense of triumph and grim purpose. Cycle 12,801 complete. Harvest protocol, advanced. Genetic catalyst, detected. Termination of resistance, imminent. Activation of final countermeasure, proceeding. The message ended abruptly, leaving a chilling silence. The countermeasure, the Creator's ultimate weapon, was now being activated, perhaps against their will, perhaps by the adversaries themselves, using the very God signal that had woken humanity. And it was happening on Earth. Aiden looked at Kira, then at Marcus and Priya. The choice was stark. Let this ancient weapon activate, potentially wiping out humanity along with the adversaries, or find a way to stop it or control it. The fate of the world now hinged on a race against an ancient alien doomsday device, one whose activation point they now knew. "We have to get there," Aiden said, his voice grim but resolute. "We have to stop it, or control it, before it's too late." In the next part of the Creator's Code, as humanity grapples with mass disappearances on Earth, a chilling new terror unfolds in the heavens. Our familiar solar system is about to be irrevocably rewritten, and the only hope lies in understanding a weapon designed to end worlds.